Hi, my name is Bunnycakes and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. I have unfortunately taken this book back to the library because I forgot I hadn't reviewed it, so I'm going to do an insert of it here. The book is about a woman named Henrietta Lacks, but scientists and most students only know her as Gila. From a sample of her tissue that was taken without her knowledge in 1951. She was a poor black tobacco farmer, and she was undereducated, and so was her husband, and doctors kind of took advantage of her and her family when they took her tissues without permission, and they didn't tell the family. In fact, her husband later says that they had asked him if they could take tissue from her body after she had passed away, and he told them no. However, that when they had asked that, and at the time they didn't have to, they had already taken samples of her from her first visit to the hospital while she was alive, and no one knew. The doctor who used her tissue samples and ended up culturing them and making them the first immortal cells was George Guy, and he was helped by his wife Margaret. At the time, like I said, it wasn't illegal what they did, and it wasn't illegal for a very, very long time. And on top of that, the people who ran the hospital felt that in doing medical research on especially the poor black people that came to Johns Hopkins, that was because they got free medical care. The research that was done on them was kind of a form of payment. And the HeLa cells are responsible for so many things and advances in science. They helped with the polio vaccine, and they've helped doctors study cancer, and they've helped doctors understand the way cells grow and divide, and the difference between cancer cells and normal cells, and also they've made it so that doctors can understand how virulent certain cancers can be. The best part, though, other than talking about the science and the hard facts of this story, is that Rebecca Skloot went on above and beyond, actually, and told the personal story and history of not just Henrietta but her family. And she told the story of how it affected her family once they found out, and how losing Henrietta affected them, and how Henrietta was for so long an unknown person. A lot of books even still call her Helen Lacks or other names that could be related to HeLa, because at the time the way they named cell samples was they took the first two letters of the first name and the first two letters of the last name, and her name was Helen Lacks, so HeLa. At one point, the Dr. Guy actually willfully failed to correct a person who was writing an article, and that's where the name Helen Lacks came from. And like, this book gives you so many conflicting feelings, and I think that really good books are supposed to do that. Like, the amazing scientific breakthroughs and the knowledge that came from her cells did so much good, and I feel like any person, regardless of how their cells were taken or their body was treated would feel good about having done so much good for science and the world and just for humanity. But there's also the fact that the cells weren't always used for good, or at least they were used in practices that were inhumane. For instance, one of the doctors who used her cells injected the cancer cells into poor Jewish people to see how cancer would affect them, to see if they would get cancer. And he did it to other people too, but at one point he exclusively tested on Jewish people in a Jewish hospital. And that's just a horrible. Like, it makes you think back to the Nazi days. And this was post-Nazi Germany, so people knew that this was done and it wasn't okay. But doctors in the US felt that the rules that were the rules didn't apply to them because they really were doing things for the good of humanity and not trying to create super soldiers or a superior race, which I don't really think that matters. That said, because of those inhumane tests and treatments, there are now laws against that, actual laws, not just suggestions. From this and from a couple of other similar cases, there are also now laws in regard to human tissue research and informed consent, which I think is really important. Another thing that makes you feel kind of bad is that so many companies and doctors made a killing off of selling Henrietta's cells, and her family even still lives in poverty. They lived in poverty and they suffered abuse, and some of them were homeless and they were in prison, and a lot of them are sick, and because there was some inbreeding in the Lax family, they all kind of they have like hearing issues and learning disabilities, and like they shouldn't have had to go through that poverty when other people were making so much money off of their mother's cells or their ancestors' cells. And it just seems so unfair when you think about it. Like, even though it was not illegal at the time, it seems still like they were stolen from. They didn't give their consent, they didn't give their permission, and while rich white doctors primarily were making all kinds of money from this poor black woman's tissues that they stole, her family was starving and suffering and living paycheck to paycheck. And when Rebecca Skloot found her family, found Henrietta's family, a lot of them were still like in positions where they couldn't afford medications and doctor's visits or to go to the hospital, and it's just terrible when you think about it. This book kind of it makes you think, and it lets you see a view of the world that, especially if you're a white person, or like especially if you're a well-off white person, which I'm not, but I am a white person, and I know that I likely would never have been in the same position as Henrietta or her family. Not in the exact same position. For one, like, as a white woman, I'm not afraid to look at a doctor and say, I think you're wrong. But especially back then in 1951, even white people took doctors as authorities. So if they said this is what you need to do, that's what people did. Like, you still see that today with some people. If the doctor says, jump, people ask how high. They don't ask, okay, well, why am I doing this? Well, I have started to, because I've had some terrible doctor's experiences. But I think I think part of what made this book so poignant is because it combined the hard science facts with the real life humanity and personal connection. And so you get both. And I think that it will help a lot of people who wouldn't ordinarily pick up a book about Henrietta Lacks, because most of them are about the hard science and it's dry and often hard to understand. But by adding in the human interest part, it makes it kind of easier to digest and easier to understand. And like, when you read human interest pieces, like, I don't know about you, but I find myself, like, I can't put it down. And I read this book really quickly, um, because it was so good. And I liked the way it was written, and I thought it was really well done. Um, I think it's a great book to give you perspective about history and about especially what it meant to be a poor black person in the 1950s. I highly recommend it. And if you don't want to read it, you can watch the movie. There's an HBO movie with Oprah Winfrey that came out recently. I can't remember exactly when it came out. It might not be out yet. But it's out there, or it will be out there, and you can watch it. I haven't watched the movie yet. I plan to, and once I do, I will probably review the movie and post it on here as well. Even though this is a booktube channel, I feel like movies and TV shows that relate to books are welcome here too. So other than this being a review, I would love to hear your thoughts and comments on this situation, on this book, down below, or in a video response, or whatever you want to do. I think that this sort of thing is worth discussion, and I would love to hear other people's opinions on it. Like I said, I have mixed feelings. Like, so much good came from it, but also a lot of bad, and a lot of like, oh my god, how could that happen? And why would you think that was okay kind of moments happen? But still, I love the book. Like I said, I think I gave it a 5-star review. And again, I'll put an insert of it here so you can see the book. But that's all I really have. I'm starting to ramble. So if you like my content, if you like my discussions and reviews, please like this video and click subscribe and follow me on all my social media. It'll be linked down below. Have a nice day.